Hello friends, this is Audi1 and you're watching part 3 of the Sqli lab series. Well, a quick recap on the previous topics. Last time we discussed how we can just break a query by doing a kind of fuzzing or sort of stupid things. Then we tried to fix the query by providing some kind of comments. Let's do that out. Let's start our labs. For those who are just watching this part of the series, you can go back and watch the other two parts first. The links are given in the description section of the video. So the quick recap, we used a backslash to see how the developer has given the query. So we figured out that for lesson 1 the developer has used single quotes to wrap around the string or the input that we give. Let's leave this section here for a moment and let's go and do lesson 3. Apart from the lesson number, everything remains the same. Let's again give the input id equals 1, same way id equals 2, id equals 3, id equals 4, and so on, id equals 8. So the website is actually the same, or the web page is actually the same, but I have modified or changed the logic in the backend query. Let's see. As we started the fuzzing process, let's fuzz this out. Give it some big integer. Okay, nothing happens. Let's give it some string. Nothing happens. Let's give it some alphanumeric things. Nothing happens. Let's give it a single quotes. Okay, it breaks. But this time the error that we see is somewhat different. Or let's use 1 and use a single quote to break it. Let's start gedit and let's paste what we found here. So again we are trying to get rid of the extra quotes or things. So if you say this is the string, so the starting quote, and we balance it with this end quote, and the input we provided is 1 apostrophe. As you can see in this case, we have an extra brace around, which was not prevalent in the previous case. Let's not think of it and let's try to comment this thing out as we did it in the previous section. So to fix the query, what we did, we used double dashes and a plus sign to comment the query out. Let's do it. Oops, the query does not fix. Why? Because we were not able to guess what the developer had actually used in the initial phase. So let's go back and do it. Let's put a backslash, the escape character, if you remember from lesson 2. Now if you see the error, we put a 1 slash. So the error that is being dumped is somewhat like this. So we input 1 dash and we have an apostrophe and a bracket around it. So generally when we use these brackets or braces, we use them in pairs, and when we use quotes, we use them in pairs. So if we can guess, so the left side should also have a bracket and a quote. So if we if we try to guess the complete query, it should be like this: select login underscore name comma password from table where id equals. So this time the developer has used this logic and our input goes in here. So in order to effectively fix this query, we need to use this brace to escape out of the string or escape out of the string boundary or the data boundary that the developer has set for us. Let's do it. So if we say 1 apostrophe and the bracket, assuming that on the left side there is already a bracket and an apostrophe, so this effectively looks correct. And now we'll comment out rest of the query: double hyphen and a plus. Bingo, it worked. Let's take another example for a better understanding. Let's take lesson 4. As you can see, the lesson 4, everything remains the same. So practically the backend query has been changed somehow. Let's try it. id equals 1. Let's try to break it. I provide a single quote. Oops, it did not break. Let's put something like alphanumeric. It did not break. Let's put something like just a string. It did not break. Let's put a big. It did not break. Let's put again an apostrophe, double check. It did not break. We did not try a double quotes. Wow, it broke again. But this time single quotes was not responsible for breaking the query, but double quotes was. So now if we guess, yeah, the developer has used double quotes to wrap around the parameter rather than using the single quotes. And as you can see here, let's copy it. Let's get rid of the extra quotes. And you cannot separate these because it's a double quote, not a single quote. So effectively, if you see here, and if you try to copy this string, the developer has used double quotes and the brackets. Let's try it. And now let's comment out the rest of the query. Wow, it worked. Why I took you through these different scenarios, so that to make you understand or to get it clear what is the importance of understanding the query and trying to visualize and try to get exactly what is needed. I hope it is clear now. Let's proceed further. Let's come back to our lesson 1 again, and let's put the injection back. 1 apostrophe and hyphen hyphen and a plus sign breaks it. As we discussed last time, that we got the left side was the breaking of query, that was done by 1 apostrophe. In case of lesson 3, it was done by an apostrophe and a bracket. In lesson 4, it was done by double quotes and a bracket. I did not touch lesson 2. I leave it to you all to try lesson 2 and see what exactly is in lesson 2. If you have doubts, you can always put in the comments. I'll be happy to answer you on that. And as we discussed in part 2, whatever we inject here, in between the left side and the right side will get executed on the back end. We tried doing an AND operator, and 1, which is true, and if you do an AND 0, effectively making it a false statement, thereby what we see on the screen should not be visible. Now let's try something else. As we have effectively seen that we are able to inject some code inside the query, and we are able to successfully escape the string boundaries. Let's continue. In this scenario, as we see, the website is interacting with you in some way. What I mean to say is that when we provide id equals 1 or id equals 2 or id equals 3 and so on, we see that some information is being dumped on the screen. We are dumping the username and password. Looks strange, but just assume that to be a kind of an output, something from the database. It could be an image, it could be some text, anything. So primarily we are getting some kind of data, some text from the database. So in this case, we will use these fields or where the data is being input to dump our data or dump what we need. Let's see. Before we continue any further, we now need to visualize how many columns are used by the developer in the query. I am not talking about the columns in the backend database, but the columns that are being used in the query, which we had tried to imagine. So right now we imagine that we have a login name and a password field. Let's validate it. This we can do it by using a function called order by. So we'll try to iterate the query or try to iterate the input by increasing the order. So order by 1, we do not get an error. Order by 2, we do not get an error. Order number 3, we do not get an error again. Order number 4, we get an error. So we see an unknown column 4 in order clause. That means that the developer is using 3 columns in his query and not 2 as we anticipated. So let's update our query. let's write the query for lesson 1, because these are not for lesson 1. Yeah, and let's say we call it column, let's call them column col-1, col-2, and col-3. So till now we have successfully figured out that the query that is being used in the website or the web page is using 3 columns: column 1, column 2, and column 3. We do not know the name of the columns yet, or the table names or anything else, but we are enumerating. We are trying to get that information. Let's continue. So we know that we have 3 columns, so we can use a function to join these queries. We already know, let's get back to gedit, we already know where we are injecting. We are injecting here, and we just say order 1, we put an apostrophe and our injected code here, and it goes on like this, and then we put these double dashes and a plus sign. So if you see, we cannot change this part of the query, so this remains as it is. So what we do, we try to write our own query here, and we combine these by using the union statement. Union select, as we remember, the left side has 3 columns. So for union, the columns on both the sides should be identical. So we use union select 1, 2, 3, because we know that on the left side of the union there are 3 columns. So on the right side of the union we are also using 3 columns. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works, but nothing special on the screen. Why? Because now instead of evaluating one query, the website is evaluating 2 queries, and the response is coming back for the first query, which is getting evaluated correctly, that is 1. So if we make sure that the first part of the query does not evaluate correctly, then the second part of the query will be outputted. Let's check it. So let's give it some fictitious value. Let's say -1, or let's say 99, or 999, which did not exist, and let's check. Wow, it worked. But this time, instead of getting the username or the login name and the password on the screen, we are getting 2 and 3. Wait a minute, they seem to be this 2 and 3 that we put in. Let's double check. Let's put 4 and 5 here, and let's see. Yeah, it worked. So 4 is being dumped and 5 is being dumped. So out of the 3 columns, the database is responding back, and the information being used by the developer is from column 2 and column 3. Now if we ask the database to dump anything from the version, from the database name, from the column name, from the table name, we need to use the position 2nd and 3rd. Let's do it. Let's check the version of this SQL Server. We use a function called version, and our version is 5.1.62 on Ubuntu 10.04. Correct, because we are using backtrack. Let's try to put something else. Let's try to put database. Bingo, the name of the database is security. If you remember lesson 1, when we installed the database, it was security. I hope everything is clear for now. We can also figure out what is the user credentials being used to connect to the database. We can use two things here. One is user. So we figure out that the name being used is root, and you can verify with your db credentials.inc file that you provided root, or you can use current underscore user. So as you can see, the more you're proficient or the more you know the MySQL server, the more you are able to comfortably extract the information. That is why I mentioned in the previous lessons that having proficiency on databases is trivial to understand injections correctly. We'll continue enumerating this more in the next lessons. Thank you for now. Before I go, I would like to mention a special thanks to some of my friends, Spaz, February, Shashank, and many others who constantly review my videos and give me a feedback how I can improve them. Thank you guys, much appreciated. And for now, bye bye.